Hello there, it's Xith, and today's a special occasion. I decided to collaborate with one of my personal friends and Elder Scrolls Twitch streamer, Infinite Oni. The concept for this build I'm about to show you was entirely created by Infinite Oni himself. I just helped him realize it into this build video. Now, no need to unnecessarily waste time. I think we should just get right into it. The Archmage, Archmages, or Archmagister are appointed leaders and masters of the Arcane that usually lead a local guild, and every factor in which a mage can excel at is mastered by these true masters of the Arcane. These wise representations of men or mer gain this title by proving their magical worth and skill set to the higher generations of previous Archmages, thus invoking the Mage Council to elect that specific person as an Archmage. Being an Archmage means devoting your life to furthering and regulating an establishment of the Arcane, while simultaneously teaching and tutoring other bright minds alike. And these bright minds are specific apprentices the Archmage decides to devote his time to. This Archmage in particular that we're going to be talking about showed no signs of excellence in his early life, but his dedication and interest for arcane knowledge would soon cancel all of that out. This build will focus on learning/acquiring completely everything there is to know about magic and his newly found ability to exhale flame and ice spells by forcefully shouting. As I mentioned previously, you will want to acquire every spell tome, every book related to magic, and every shout possible in Skyrim Special Edition whilst playing this character build. Now, you might ask, where's this thirst for knowledge coming from? Well, this odd thirst for knowledge stems from his unusual fetish-like interest in achieving arcane supremacy, yet not for his own personal gain, just so he could prove to himself how far one could go whilst envisioning this unconventional journey of his, all whilst using every school of the arcane at hand. This is a purely vanilla build, which is expected since this build is a very common idea that most Elder Scrolls players try out either once or twice during their time playing the Elder Scrolls. Players can experiment with various mods, but I assume people who do end up watching this video will have a slight representation of which mods could benefit this character, but that'll totally be up to the viewer and the one envisioning the character build. The alternate start mod is a debatable topic. I've asked the creator of this build, Infinite Oni, if we could somehow implement it, but he kindly declined, which is understandable. Some used to call this mage the Vampiric Necromage, but people have ultimately concluded that it was a legend due to never actually witnessing his vampirism in person. Could this Archmage really stoop down to vampirism just to experience his fair share of necromancy and vampiric magic? Well, we'll find out soon enough. This highly esteemed male is of Altmer descent, granting him the starting bonus of plus 50 magicka and the following special abilities: Highborn, which gives you faster magicka regeneration for 60 seconds once a day, and Fortify magicka, passive increase in magicka by 50 points. As we all know, High Elves are genetically born with enhanced magical capabilities. They are predispositioned to it. This fact justifies the skill bonuses High Elves inherit in Skyrim. Plus 10 to Illusion, and plus 5 to every other perk tree of the Arcane. These are all of the bonuses one would get playing an High Elf. As far as health and magicka are concerned, every leveling point will be invested into magicka, up until it reaches a matching number of 300, roughly up to level 16 as a high elf, but level 21 with other races. After achieving this number, the player will be heavily focusing on health, rarely investing into stamina, although the excess amount of health points will help towards using the Equilibrium spell. Now, let's move on to the standing stones for this character build. Once again, this is a controversial topic I hate discussing, but hey, someone has to. you're going to opt for the Mage Stone early on in the game. Before and shortly after joining the college, nearing the end, after acquiring the Archmage robes, you'll want to choose between the Lord and Atronach Stone. Both of these would benefit the character build immensely. This skilled mage will be specializing in every tree of the arcane arts. Might sound easy enough, yeah? But this is where we draw the distinction. Early to mid game will solely be upgrading Destruction, Restoration, and Alteration. You possibly could trade in Illusion or Conjuration instead of Restoration, but that's mostly dependent on the player's choice. Alteration will prove useless once we establish the gear of this character. That's why upgrading it much earlier will successfully secure the player a smoother and easier experience. The starting period of this build is completely based upon the individual's imagination, how one would think an Archmage performs. Infinite Oni expressed his desire for this to not harbor many rules, but guidelines per se. The same applies to the playstyle of this build. He is the master of the Arcane after all. So, what awaits us next is the character's backstory, and since I am collaborating with Oni, I will let him narrate this part of the video. Enjoy.
Stardust, born Arphaeron, was born in the city of Alinor in the Somerset Isle just before the Fourth Era. He is the son of Daewin, a well-respected bookkeeping merchant and part-time father, and Etriel, full-time mother and housewife. Stardust's interest in books and arcane knowledge was very profound at a surprisingly young age, and oh boy was he in luck, for his father collected numerous instances of masterfully written spell tomes and everything else that the continent of Tamriel offered. The euphoric enjoyment he'd get from finishing a book would almost always prompt him to sneak off into his father's showroom once it closed, just so he can peacefully bask in the perfection. His favorite ballads were those about mages and warriors. How quickly a mage could change the tides of battle fascinated the little elven boy. He inquired about studying magic with his parents. As a result of that, he was gifted his first 3 spell tomes: Flames, Healing, and Fury. He studied and mastered those, but he just couldn't accept the mundane nature of only mastering 3 lousy spells. Once he fully matured and grew up, he read about guilds and colleges that could further aid his goal in learning more. His travels brought him to Cyrodiil, the land of opportunity. Here he applied to the newly found Synod Institution of Magic that was formed shortly after the Oblivion Crisis. They ultimately refused his application due to the lack of experience and knowledge. Rejection stings, and knowing how fierce High Elves are, this ignited a subtle flame that would ultimately drive his current desire to exceed everyone's expectation of what he would become. He had specific goals in mind, learning every spell imaginable with the addition of taking it upon himself to study the art of enchantment, prompting him to learn every enchantment as well. During the aftermath of the painful rejection, he tried his luck with the College of Whispers. Gladly, they accepted. After approximately a year of polishing novice and apprentice level spells, the Great War interfered with his daily social interactions, which prohibited him from completing certain tasks that would benefit him. This grew awfully irritating, forcing our aspiring mage to depart from Cyrodiil. The College of Winterhold was mentioned abruptly during one of his lectures in the college, but at the time, he thought nothing of it. He was to return to his homeland directly, but he decided to visit Falkreath Hold in Skyrim due to a slight obsession for forestry. After making it to the border and over into Darkwater Crossing, we know what happens next. Later on, he learns about the Way of the Voice and decides he wants to learn all the shouts too. Being in Skyrim reminded him of the lecture where the College of Winterhold was mentioned, and he made it a goal to attend and thrive amongst this community of like-minded people. As far as the 9 are concerned, as long as they don't bother him, he'll peacefully accept their morally superior domination over Mundus. Though Stardust has a thirst for knowledge, so he will gladly serve Hermaeus Mora during the Dragonborn DLC, or even earlier, during the quest for the Augma Infinium. The only thing he truly cares about is obtaining never-ending knowledge, and will do so by any means necessary. This closely ties into how he will act towards people who are obstructing the way to his goal. Don't get me wrong, he values his morals, but he's no stranger to making exceptions. This could theoretically mean him joining the Thieves Guild or the Dark Brotherhood. taking odd jobs here and there, or even becoming a traveling merchant, selling a decent amount of enchanted items. None of this means that he will fully conform to their rules and codex, but he can't complete his goal without wealth. His other hobby also consists of collecting different books for his custom library, mainly as a way to show appreciation towards his loving father. Getting accustomed to Skyrim definitely wasn't an easy feat, and it came with its fair share of troubles. He was assigned to clear Morvar's lair for a hefty sum. This spiraled into a disaster. He left the lair prematurely because of the distinct injuries that his restoration spells just couldn't patch up. After gathering himself at the closest inn, he felt a sudden yet swift adrenaline rush. All of his body's blood rushed into his torso and skull, nearly leaving him unconscious. All of this indicated the starting effects of sanguine vampirism. He let this parasitic disease nest unknowingly, thinking the previous symptoms were just the result of the disastrous aftermath. Not even a week into not curing it, we know damn well what happened to this Altmer's anatomy. He wasn't particularly bothered by this, considering how much he learned about vampirism and the magical capabilities that come with it, especially the most taboo art of them all, necromancy. He wasn't about to let this opportunity pass. Vampirism allowed him to enhance the potency of various spells, equilibrium, and enchantments. This voyage of vampirism meets an abrupt end after he discovers what future Harkon envisioned for the vampires of Tamriel, which convinces him that it is ultimately not worth it, meaning he'll cure himself after completing the main questline of the Dawnguard DLC alongside Serana.
Wow, that was a pretty fleshed out backstory. Thanks for elaborating, Oni. Now, moving on to the skills and gear. There's nothing special to say about the skill set you're going to want to follow. A Master of the Arcane should technically have everything under his sleeve. Destruction, Alteration, Restoration, Illusion, and Conjuration. Acquiring every perk in these skill trees would be highly advised. In other words, experimenting with stuff like this never hurts. As previously mentioned, the 3 starting skill trees you'll be investing your time into will be Destruction, Restoration, and Alteration, with Alchemy and Enchanting as his 2 main passive skills. Illusion and Conjuration can be used passively or sporadically, depending on the situation at hand. Another one of his more passive skills will also be Speech, which he will inadvertently master by trading/selling various trinkets from his adventures. Alchemy. Here we're going to be getting Alchemist 5 out of 5 for overall stronger potions, Physician, Benefactor, Experimenter, Snake Blood, and Purity. He views alchemy as yet another one of his fulfilling hobbies, something to get his mind off of magic. Enchanting. Will obviously pick up every perk in this tree. Other than constant arcane combat, he'll be devoting most of his free time to alchemy and enchanting, nonetheless. Speech. Haggling 5 out of 5, Allure, Merchant, Investor, Fence, and Master Trader. These perks will successfully secure the player a more wealthier experience, and a wealthy financial backbone. Gear. An aspect of his persona that represents his practicality and usefulness. This mage will not in any way have any armor protection, so tread carefully and use the according alteration spells that increase survivability. Dragonhide also applies. Headwear. Early game, you're gonna want to pick up a circlet of your liking enchanted with Fortified Destruction and Fortified Restoration of at least 25% or higher. Mid-game, you're going to want to pick up the Mage's Circlet, and the ultimate circlet for endgame combat will be the Ethereal Crown, an artifact worn by only the prestige and worthy. Rightfully so. Now, necklace. Gold Diamond Necklace or the Bonehawk Amulet, enchanted with Fortified Destruction and Restoration of at least 25% or higher. Bodywear/robes. Early game, the choice of robes is completely dependable on the level and progress of the character. transitioning between novice, apprentice, adept, expert, and master robes. And you obviously want to decide which enchantment you'd want to have on them. Fortify, Alteration, or Restoration would be highly recommended. Upon completing the College of Winterhold questline, you'll acquire the famous robes of the Archmage himself, the Archmage robes. And this is what you'll stick with and wear indefinitely. Now, what about the ring, you may ask? Well, early to mid-game, you're going to want to pick up a gold diamond ring with the following enchantments: Fortified Destruction and Fortified Restoration, 25% or higher. Endgame Azadil's Ring of Arcana. This grants you the ability to cast the spells Ignite and Freeze. Now, moving on to the boots. Thalmor boots with the following enchantments: Shock Resistance and Fire Resistance of at least 40% or higher. Additional notes about enchanting. Enchanting endgame gear would preferably be done with enchanting at level 100. Mix this with an enchanter's elixir potion and wearing Azadil's armor for Azadil's Genius passive effect that adds 10 plus levels to your enchanting, and the Seeker of Sorcery ability from the Black Book, the Swallow Regent. Combining all of these components, you'll have a total of 145 levels of enchanting available at your disposal. Stardust. A blessing from the Divines, or just an example of what determination can achieve. Nonetheless, this is what peak performance looks like: an exceptionally astonishing tale and adventure created by an equally talented YouTube and Twitch personality, Infinite Oni. Every spell tome, every shout, every enchantment, this is what one would describe as perfection. Exactly what Stardust strived to realize. A true master of the arcane. Another build, another day. Thank you for watching, and most importantly, thanks to Infinite Oni for creating and devoting years to this build. He definitely made it easier for me to turn a broad character build into something more straightforward that the masses could enjoy. Please check out all of his social media links below, and consider following me on YouTube or another social media below as well. And if you're yearning for more similar Elder Scrolls and Fallout content like this, be sure to subscribe. Have a good one.